Playing the stock market is a sucker's game, but it rather depends on which of the gentlemen involved is the sucker. A Man of Means by P.J. Wodehouse. Part 2. The episode of the financial Napoleon. Read by Karl. Seated with his wife at breakfast on the veranda which overlooked the rolling lawns and leafy woods of his charming Sussex house, Geoffrey Windlebird, the great financier, was enjoying the morning sun to the full. His chubby features were relaxed in a smile of lazy contentment, and his wife, who liked to act sometimes as a secretary, found it difficult to get him to pay any attention to this morning's mail. "There's a column in today's Financial Argus," she said, "of which you really must take notice. It's most abusive. It's about the Wildcat Reef. They assert there never was any gold in the mine, and you knew that when you floated the company. They will have their little joke. But you had the usual mining experts' report. Of course we had, and a capital report it was. And we're thinking at the time what a neat turn of phrase the fellow had. I made he depended rather on his fine optimism and the examination of the mine. As a matter of fact, he never went near it. And why should he? It's down in South America somewhere. Awful climate, snakes, mosquitoes, revolutions, fever." Mr. Windlebird spoke drowsily, his eyes closed. "Well, the Argus people say they've sent a man of their own down there to make inquiries. A well-known expert, and the report will be in within the next fortnight. They say they'll publish it in the next number but one. What are you going to do about it?" Mr. Windlebird yawned. "Not to find a point on it, dearest. The game is up. Napoleon of Finance is about to meet his Waterloo, and all for £20,000. That is really the bitter part of it. Tomorrow we sail for the Argentine. I've got the tickets." "You're joking, Geoffrey. You must be able to raise to 20,000. It's a free bite. On paper, in the form of shares, script, bonds, promissory notes, it is a free bite. When it has to be produced in a raw, in flat, hard lumps of gold or in crackling banknotes, it's more like a bite from a hippopotamus. We can't raise it, and that's all about it. So, St. Helena for Napoleon." Although Geoffrey Windlebird described himself as Napoleon of Finance, a Chung Ling Soo of Finance would have been a more accurate title. As a juggler with other people's money, he was at the head of his class. And yet, when one came to examine it, his method was delightfully simple. Say, for instance, that the Homegrown Tobacco Trust, founded by Geoffrey in a moment of ennui, failed to yield us profits with the glowing prospectus had led the public to expect. Geoffrey would appease the excited shareholders by giving them preference shares, interest guaranteed, in the Sea Gold Extraction Company, hastily floated to meet the emergency. When the interest became due, it would, as likely as not, be paid out of the capital just described for the King Solomon's Mine Exploitation Association. The little deficiencies of the latter being replaced in its turn, when absolutely necessary, not a moment before, by the transfer of some portion of the capital raised for yet another company, and so on. There were moments when it seemed to Mr. Windlebird he had solved the problem of perpetual promotion. The only thing that can stop a triumphal progress like Mr. Windlebird's is when some coarse person refuses to play by the rules, and demands ready money instead of shares in the next venture. This had happened now, and had flattened Mr. Windlebird like an avalanche. He was a philosopher, but he couldn't help feeling a little galled that the man which had destroyed him had been so trivial. He had handled millions, on paper it was true, but still millions, and here he was knocked out of time by a paltry £20,000. "Are you absolutely sure nothing can be done?" persisted Mrs. Windlebird. "If you try every one." "Every one, dear moon of my delight. The probables, the possibles, the highly unlikelies, and the impossibles. Never an echo to the minstrel's wooing song. No, my dear, we have got to take just to the boats this time. Unless, of course, someone possessed at one at the same time of £20,000 and neurotic confiding nature happens to drop from the clouds." As he spoke, an aeroplane came sailing over the top of the trees beyond the tennis lawn. graceful as a bird that settled on the smooth turf, not 20 yards from where he was seated. Roland Blake stepped stiffly out onto the tennis lawn. His progress rather resembled that of a landsman getting out of an open boat in which he had spent a long and perilous night at sea. He was feeling more wretched than he ever felt in his life. He had a severe cold. He had a splitting headache. His hands and feet were frozen. His eyes smarted. He was hungry. He was thirsty. He hated cheerful Monsieur Farad, who had hopped out and was now busy tinkering with the engine. A gay, provincial air upon his lips, as he had rarely hated anyone, even Mira Coppin's brother Frank. Sir, but he's in troubles. He's not aware of Mr. Winterborough's approach until that pleasant, portly man's shadow fell on the turf before him. Not had an accident, I hope, Mr. Bleak? Roland was too far gone in misery to speculate as to how this genial stranger came to know his name. As a matter of fact, Mrs. Windlebird, keen student of the Illustrated Press, had recognized Roland by his photograph in the Daily Mirror. In the course of the 20 yards walk from house to tennis lawn, she put her husband in possession of the most salient points in Roland's history. It was when Mrs. Windlebird heard that Roland had £40,000 in the bank that he sat up and took notice. "Leave me to him," he said. Roland sneezed. "So excellent, thank you," he replied miserably. "Something's gone wrong with the works, but it's nothing serious, worse luck." Monsieur Farad, having by this time adjusted the defect in his engine, arose to his feet and bowed. "Excuse if we come down on your lawn, but how long do we trespass?" "Si, mon ami," he said radiantly to Roland. Uh, "Oh, no, okay. We go on." "No," said Roland decidedly. "No? What do you mean, no?" A shade of alarm fell on Monsieur Farad's weather-bitten features. The eminent birdman did not wish to part from Roland. Towards Roland he felt like a brother, for Roland had notions about payment for little aeroplane rides which bordered upon the princely. "But you say, take me to France with you." "I know, but it's all off." "But it's all wrong," Monsieur Farad gesticulated, driving home this point. "You give me £100 to take you away from Lexingham. Good, it is here." He slapped his breast pocket. "But the other £200 which also you promised me to pay me when I place you safe for France. Where's that, my friend?" "I will give you 250, said Roland earnestly, "to leave me here and go right away and never let me see your beastly machine again." A smile of brotherly forgiveness lit up Monsieur Farad's face. The generous Gallic nature asserted itself. He held his arms affectionately to Roland. "Ah, now you talk. Now you say something," he cried in his impetuous way. "Embrace me. You are all right." Roland heaved a sigh of relief when, 5 minutes later, the airplane disappeared over the brow of the hill. Then he began to sneeze again. "You're not well, you know," said Mr. Windlebird. "I've caught cold. We've been flying about all night. That French ass lost his bearings, and my suit is thin. Can you direct me to a hotel?" "Hotel? Nonsense!" Mr. Windlebird spoke in the bluff, breezy voice which at many a stricken board meeting had calmed frantic shareholders as if by magic. "You're coming right to my house and up to bed this instant." It was not until he was between the sheets with a hot water bottle at his toes and a huge breakfast beside him that Roland learned the name of his good Samaritan. When he did, his first impulse was to struggle out of bed and make his escape. Geoffrey Windlebird's name was the name which he had learned, on the course of his mercantile career, to hold in something of approaching reverence as that of one of the mightiest business brains of the age. To have to meet so eminent a man in the capacity of invalid, a nuisance about the house, was almost too much for Roland's shrinking nature. The kindness of the Windlebirds, and there seemed to be nothing that they were not ready to do for him, distressed him beyond measure. To have a really great man like Geoffrey Windlebird sprawling genially over his bed, chatting away as if he were an ordinary friend, was almost horrible. Such condescension was too much. Gradually, as he became convalescent, Roland found this feeling rapidly replaced by something more comfortable. There was such a genuine, simple Kindly couple, these Windlebirds, he lost all and retained only gratitude. He loved them both. He opened his heart to them. It was not long before he told them the history of his career, skipping the early years and beginning with the entry of wealth into his life. It makes you feel funny, he confided to Mr. Winlow's sympathetic ear, suddenly coming into a pot of money like that. You don't seem hardly able to realize it. I don't know what to do with it. Mr. Winlow smiled paternally. The advice of an older man who has had, if I may say so, some little experience of finance might be useful to you there. Perhaps if you would allow me to recommend some sound investment. Roland glowed with gratitude. There's just one thing I'd like to do before I start putting my money to anything. It's like this. He briefly related the story of his unfortunate affair with Muriel Coppin. When the hour of his departure on the airplane, his conscience began to trouble him on this point. He felt he had not acted well towards her. True, he was practically certain that she didn't care a bit about him and was in love with Albert, the silent mechanic, but there was just a chance she was mourning over his loss, and anyhow, his conscience was sore. I'd like to give her something, he said. How much do you think? Mr. Winterbold propended. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll send my own lawyer to her with, say, £1,000. Not a check, I do understand, but 1,000 golden sovereigns he can show her, roll about the table in front of her eyes. That'll console her. It's wonderful the effect money in the raw has on people. I'd rather make it 2,000, said Roland. He had never really loved Muriel, and the idea of marrying her had been a nightmare to him, but he wanted to retreat with honor. Very well, make it 2,000 if you like, though I don't quite know how old Harrison is going to carry all that money. As a matter of fact, old Harrison never had to try. On thinking it over, after he had cashed Roland's check, Mr. Wormwood came to the conclusion that £700 would be quite as much money as it would be good for Miss Coppin to have all at once. Mr. Winterbourne's knowledge of human nature was not at fault. Muriel jumped at the money, and the letter in handwriting informed Roland next morning that his slate was clean. His gratitude to Mr. Winterbourne redoubled. And now, said Mr. Winterbourne genially, we can talk about that money of yours and the best way of investing it. What you want is something which, without being in any way what is called speculative, nevertheless returns a fair and reasonable amount of interest. What you want is something sound, something solid, something with a bit of kick to it, something which can't go down and may go soaring like a rocket. Roland quietly announced that it was just what he did want, and lit another cigar. Now look here, my boy. As a general rule, I don't give tips, but I've taken a great fancy to you, Bleak, and I'm going to break my rule. Put your money, he sank his voice to a compelling whisper, put every penny you can afford into Wildcat Reefs. He leaned back with the benign air of the alchemist who had just imparted to a favorite disciple the recently discovered secret of the Philosopher's Stone. Thank you very much, said Roland gratefully. I will. The Napoleon eyed features were lightened by that rare, indulgent smile. Not so fast, young man, laughed Mr. Windlebird. Getting into Wildcat Reefs isn't quite as easy as you seem to think. So we say that you propose to invest £30,000? Yes? Very well then. £30,000. Why, I forgot about you were going to buy Wildcat Reefs on that scale. The market would be convulsed. This is perfectly true. If I'd got about that anyone was going to invest £30,000, or pence, in Wildcat Reefs, the market would certainly have been convulsed. The house would have rocked with laughter. Wildcat Reefs were a standing joke, except the unfortunate few who still had any of the shares. The thing will have to be done very cautiously. No one must know. But I think I can manage it for you. You're awfully kind. Not at all, my dear boy, not at all. As a matter of fact, I shall be doing a very good turn to another pal of mine at the same time. He filled his glass. He paused to sip. This pal of mine has a large holding of wildcats. He wants to realize in order to put the money into something else, in which he is more personally invested. Mr. Winterbourne paused. His mind dwelt for a moment on his overdrawn current account at the bank. In which he is more personally interested, he repeated dreamily. But of course you couldn't unload £30 worth of wildcats in the public market. I quite see that, assented Roland. It might, however, be done by private negotiation, he said. I must act very cautiously. Give me your check for the £30,000 tonight, and I'll run up tomorrow morning and see what I can do. He did it. What hidden strings he pulled, what levers he used, Roland did not know. All Roland knew was that somehow, by some subtle means, Mr. Windward brought it off. 2 days later, his host handed him 20,000 one-pound shares in the Wildcat Reef gold mine. There, my boy, he said. It's awfully kind of you. Now, my dear boy, don't mention it. If you're satisfied, I'm sure I am. Mr. Windward always spoke the truth when he could. He spoke it now. It seemed to Roland, as the days went by, that nothing could mar the pleasant, easy course of life at the Windlebirds. The fine weather, the beautiful garden, the pleasant company. All these things combined to make his sojourn an epoch in his life. He discovered his mistake one early afternoon as he sat smoking idly on the terrace. Mrs. Windlebird came to him, and a glance was enough to show Roland that something was seriously wrong. Her face was drawn and tired. A moment before, Roland had been thinking life perfect. The only crumpled rose leaf had been the absence of an evening paper. Mr. Windward would bring one back with him when he returned from the city, but Roland wanted one now. He was a great follower of county cricket. He wanted to know how Surrey was faring against Yorkshire. But even this crumpled rose leaf had been smoothed out, for Johnson, the groom, who happened to be riding to the nearest town on an errand, had promised to bring one back with him. He might appear at any moment now. The sight of his hostess drove all thoughts of sport out of his mind. She was looking terribly troubled. It flashed across Roland that both his host and hostess had been unusually silent at dinner the night before, and later, passing Mr. Windward's room on his way to bed, he had heard their voices, low and agitated. Could they have had some bad news? Mr. Bleak, I want to speak to you. Roland moved like a sympathetic cow and waited to hear more. You were not up when my husband left for the city this morning, or he would have told you himself. Mr. Bleak, I hardly know how to break it to you. Break it to me? My husband advised you to put a very large sum of money in a mine called Wildcat Reefs. Yes, £30,000. As much as that? Oh, Mr. Bleak! She began to cry softly. She pressed his hand. Roland gaped at her. Mr. Bleak, there's been a terrible slump in Wildcat Reefs. Today they may be utterly worthless. Roland felt as if a cold hand had been laid on his spine. Worthless, he stammered. Mrs. Windlebird looked at him with moist eyes. You can imagine how my husband feels about this. It was on his advice you invested your money. He held himself directly responsible. He's in a terrible state of mind. He's frantic. He has grown so fond of me, Mr. Bleak, he can hardly face the thought he's been the innocent instrument of your trouble. Roland felt it was an admirable comparison. His sensations were precisely those of a leading actor in an earthquake. The solid earth seemed to melt under him. We talked it over last night if you'd gone to bed, and we came to the conclusion there was only one honorable step to take. We must make good your losses. We must buy back those shares. A ray of hope began to steal over Roland's horizon. But, he began, there are no buts, really, Mr. Bleak. We should neither of us know a moment's peace if we don't do it. Now you paid £30,000 for the shares, you said. Well, she held out a pink slip of paper to him. This will make everything out all right. Roland looked at the check. But this is signed by you, he said. Yes. You see, if Jeffrey had to sign a check for that amount, it would mean selling some of his stock. In his position, whatever the movement watched by enemies, he could not afford to do it. It might ruin the plans of years. But I have some money of my own. My selling off stock doesn't matter, you see. I have postdated the check a week to give me time to realize on the securities which my money is invested. Roland's whole nature rose in revolt at the sacrifice. If it had been his host who had made this offer, he would have accepted it. But chivalry forbade his taking this money from this woman. A glow of self-sacrifice warned him. After all, what was this money of his? He had never had any fun of it. He had so little acquaintance with it that for all practical purpose it might never have been his. With a gesture which once impressed him very favorably when exhibited on the stage above the heroes of the number 2 company of the Price of Honor, which had paid a 6-day visit to Bury St. Edwards a few months before, he tore his check into little pieces. I couldn't accept it, Mrs. Windlebird, he said. I can't tell you how deeply I appreciate your wonderful kindness, but I really couldn't. I bought the shares with my eyes open. The whole thing is nobody's fault, and I can't let you suffer for it. After the way you've treated me here, it would be impossible. I can't take your money. It's noble and generous of you in the extreme, but I can't accept it. I've still got a little money left, and I've always been used to working for a living anyway, so it's all right. Mr. Bleak, I implore you. Roland was hideously embarrassed. He looked right and left for ways to escape. He could hardly take to his heels, and there seemed no other way of ending the interview. Then, with a start of relief, he perceived Johnson the groom coming toward him with the evening paper. Johnson said he was going to the town, said Roland, so I asked him to get me an evening paper. I wanted to see the once scores. If he had been looking at his hostess then, an action which he was strenuously avoiding, might have seen a curious spasm pass over her face. Mrs. Winterbourne turned very pale and sat down suddenly in the chair which Roland had vacated at the beginning of their conversation. She lay back in it with her eyes closed. She looked tired and defeated. Roland took the paper mechanically. He wanted his diversion to the conversation merely, for his interest in the doings of Surrey and Yorkshire had waned to the point of complete indifference in competition with Mrs. Winterbourne's news. Equally mechanically, he unfolded it and glanced at the front page. As he did so, a flaring explosion of headlines smote his eye. Out of the explosion emerged the words "Wildcats." "Why," he exclaimed, "this column is about wildcats on the front page here." "Yes?" Mrs. Winterbourne's voice sounded strangely dull and toneless. Her eyes were still closed. Roland took in the headlines with starting eyes. "The Wildcat Reef Gold Mine. Another Klondike. Frenzied seas on the stock exchange. Brokers fight for shares. Record boom. Unprecedented rise in prices." Shorn of all superfluous adjectives and general journalistic exuberance, what the paper had to announce to its readers was this: the special commissioner sent out by the Financial Argus to make an exhaustive examination of the Wildcat Reef mine, with the amiable, no doubt, of exploding Mr. Geoffrey Winterbourne once and for all with the confining British public, has found, to his unbounded astonishment, that there are vast quantities of gold in the mine. The discovery of the new reef, the largest and richest it has started since the famous Fount Morgan, occurred with dramatic appropriateness on the very day of his arrival. We scarcely remind our readers that until that moment, Wildcat Reef shares had reached a very, very low figure, and only a few optimists retained their faith in the mine. As the largest holder, Mr. Winterbourne is to be heartily congratulated on this new addition to his fortune. The publication of the expert report in the Financial Argus resulted in a boom in wildcats, the like of which can seldom have been seen on the stock exchange. From something like 1 shilling and sixpence per bundle, the £1 shares have gone up to nearly £10 a share. Even at this latter figure, people were literally fighting to secure them. The world slammed about Roland. He was stupefied and even terrified. The very atmosphere seemed foggy. So far as his reeling brain was capable of thought, he figured he was now worth about £200,000. "Oh, Mrs. Winterbourne," he cried, "it's all right after all." Mrs. Winterbourne sat back in her chair without answering. "It's all right for everyone," screamed Roland joyfully. "Why, if I'm at a couple of 100,000, what must Mr. Winterbourne have netted? It says here he is the largest holder. He must have pulled off the biggest thing of his life." He thought for a moment. "The chap I'm sorry for," he said thoughtfully, "is Mr. Winterbourne's pal. You know, the fellow whom Mr. Winterbourne persuaded to sell all his shares to me." A faint moan escaped from his hostess's pale lips. Roland did not hear it. He was reading the cricket news. End of part 2.